Hey guys, welcome to the Hypertrophy Hub podcast. So this week I'm speaking to three of my lovely friends. They're all hyper intelligent PhD students from AUT University. So I thought it would be interesting to sort of have them on to talk about the general premise of higher education, PhDs in general, and just higher education in general. So would you guys like to go around the circle, sort of introducing yourself, talking about a little bit about your research and going from there? Colby, would you like to go first?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Like I said, my name is Colby Souza. I'm a PhD student out of Auckland University of Technology, working with Dr. Eric Helms. Some of my previous research has been in RPE accuracy and the application of the RPE or RAR scale. It's also been looking at course of recovery for the squat, bench, and deadlift, and also did some things looking at modifying eccentric time of the squat and bench and how that affects concentric outputs. And right now, I'm looking at more practical ways of enhancing recovery, specifically looking at implementing like lower volume power type days, seeing if that can enhance the recovery and potentially prime performance later on from session to session in the resistance training program.
And then Kedric, would you like to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about what you are researching?
Right, yes. So my name is Kedric and right now, just like Colby has mentioned, I'm also one of Dr. Eric Helms' student. But previously, I did my master's in sports and exercise nutrition, and my area of research is looking at carbohydrates and its effect on exercise performance, mainly endurance performance, as ironic as it is right now in my life, where I'm actually a powerlifter and literally endurance does not play a role in my sport at all. But I actually looked at carbohydrates and its effect on endurance performance, but on exercise as a whole in general. Right now, for my PhD, I'm looking at rapid weight loss strategies for the strength athlete. So essentially what I'm looking at is ways to make weight cuts for the strength athlete safer and with the minimal decrement to the athlete's performance. So yeah, that's basically what I'm looking at right now.
Boom, cool. And then Ivan, would you also like to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your research?
Yeah, my name is Ivan Jukic, and I'm also a PhD candidate here at AUT, just like my two buddies. With Dr. Helms. I'm looking at optimizing resistance training monitoring and prescription through velocity-based training. So essentially, I've been dealing with that for already a few years, and what I'll try to do is to kind of send a message out there and to say that we should move from the traditional way of prescribing resistance training, so from percentage-based training, and use velocity to dictate our training decisions. And that's essentially it.
Oh, cool. Fantastic. You guys all seem relatively intelligent, and I think we're going to have a fruitful discussion. If you're wondering why I can talk to those dudes like this, like we know each other in person, so that's why it's sort of strange for me to talk to them like this on air. A little bit weird. But one of the things that I think is a sort of interesting topic, and I think is a good place to sort of start out to sort of be a premise to start with, is people often nowadays are talking about higher education as though it is redundant, as though it is unable to further knowledge, or it just sort of, they talk about it in a way, especially general population people, they'll talk about it in a way that sort of makes it out to seem like higher education doesn't bring much to the table, or like it's just a big waste of money and people just go and waste their money there. And I find issue with that because I think they're sort of missing the point a lot of the time. How would you guys sort of generally respond to those sort of ideas about people sort of saying higher education isn't that useful anymore, kids are going and wasting their time and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, so I'll start off. Yeah, I think those who say that, they probably have a reason for why they say that, and we don't really know, and that's okay. Everyone has their own reasons, but I think they might not give higher education the chance that it deserves, because a lot of times we think it's something that it's not, and we give this kind of negative connotation to it, which potentially mislead us to missing out on something important. It's higher education. So when you're saying higher education, are we specifically talking about like master's, PhD, or you want to include like just education in general?
Well, so I guess we would have to sort of make the divide, because I think the argument people make for undergraduate degrees may be a little bit more valid. But I think once you get to master's, PhD, I guess we'll talk about it more down the line, but it's like that's a whole different pursuit for, I guess, different reasons, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if we're talking about specifically master's and PhD, you kind of know ahead of time that that's what you want to do. At least when I was an undergrad, I personally felt like I wasn't learning as much as I wanted to. I would really, when I'd be walking to class, I'd be listening to podcasts, by Eric, by a bunch of people, and I feel like I was learning more through this podcast than I was actually in the classroom. Not to say I didn't learn in the classroom, but for me personally, that kind of taking tests, that classroom-based learning wasn't how I learn. I like the hands-on stuff. I like to have these discussions kind of like we're having now. And that's what higher education kind of gets you to. It puts you in a classroom or in a room with individuals who also care about their education. And that can be difficult to do unless you host a podcast, or unless, you just happen to walk in and find people who like that. But it kind of gives you, it's more of the opportunity presenter. That's what the higher education is, to then give you these chances to do things that you love. And people might not see that.
Yeah. Any comments from?
No, I agree with Colby, but I just wanted to say that we should also consider the cultural differences. So where is this message or where this thought is coming from? Because it might not be the same on all continents. For example, in my country, and I'm free in most of the countries, and that affects a lot of it. And I think that people in my country, pretty much everyone is doing some sort of a degree. A bachelor's is a kind of a norm, but not even bachelor's, but master's, because it's free, so you can get it. And because of that, you have a situation where a lot of people are just getting it because they can, or their parents are actually pushing them to get a degree, but they're not necessarily interested in getting one. And what you end up having is people who are not super qualified, regardless of their degree, but they don't give a damn about the science. They don't give a damn about what are they going to do. And this is I think this is really pronounced in the economics and the business world, because they just care about getting out there, having a good job, especially the managing positions and all that stuff. And in that field, more than in any other field, in my opinion, is more about who you know than what you know. So that's why we have a saying in my country that I don't want to have a degree if someone is going to compare me with these other guys that do have a degree, because they're such a retards. They don't know what are they talking about. So that's one of the reasons. And I really believe that that higher education is good and it's awesome. Obviously, I'm a PhD student, so I think that. But I don't think that it's necessarily for everyone. And I think that a lot of people are missing the point. They kind of have I don't think like it's a low self-esteem or something like that. They have to push it forward or get a PhD to feel better about themselves, or to have that paper on the wall, which will kind of increase their value. I think that's the wrong approach. And I think and when I said that there are some people, I don't think there are some people. I actually think that there are a lot of people who are like that. Like, it's going to increase my value or the value of my work and all that stuff. I think that's a very, very bad and toxic approach to research and higher education in general. And I also, some of these guys that actually get a PhD with the wrong motivation, I would say, if they end up in academia and they become professors, I think that they're going to do a bad job, and that's why you have they're going to do a bad job as teachers. And then you will quite frequently hear students, complaining about professors that they are not motivated, that they are, boring, that they are not trying to teach them anything, they're not enthusiastic about what they do and stuff like that. I think that's all a consequence of that, wrong reasons of why doing it in the first place. So I think that people who extent, they have a point. But yeah, I think there are a lot of factors that have to be considered before giving a definite answer to your question.
And Kedric?
Right. So I'll jump in and give my thoughts. I think I have a lot to speak regarding like education in general, just because I came from a very different background. I actually started as one of those typical sort of like business field, in the marketing field, where it's quite typical for people in my country, at least in Asia in general, to pursue. In Malaysia, we say that there's always the big 5 jobs that every parent want their kids to pursue. That's either like become a lawyer, engineer, doctor, accountant, and something else that I don't know, because clearly I'm not one of those big 5s, and those are like the very stereotypical jobs that potentially would provide a big safety net in terms of earning income. And yeah, I used to think like that. I initially had a very strong interest in sports science ever since I sort of like started rough exercising in general. Like, it's more of like the pursuit of knowledge of all things fitness and sports science to sort of like supplement my gym routine, right? I want to be like the most jacked guy in the room. So until today, like, that goal has not yet been achieved because I'm still not the most jacked guy in the room. But what happened was that kind of like stimulated my path to pursue the knowledge that I truly value. And when we look at education as a whole, maybe it's just semantics, but I don't really like the term like higher education, because to say higher, there needs to it indicates there's something lower, right? And I don't think that there is higher or lower education, because I think education on its own, it should be classified by its utility and how useful it is for that person, and how useful it is to accomplish the goal of that person. When we talk about, when Ivan brought up a very interesting point when he talked about cultural differences, because in certain nations, the reason why the emphasis on I would say graduate studies, right, or like undergrad, that includes undergrad, postgrad, doctorate, right, all these studies is so important in Asian countries, because one, minimum wage is really low, right? So you cannot go by working on a minimum wage salary at like Macca's, or like running a retail shop, or working in like Rebel Sport, right, for example. But whereas in New Zealand, even though it's not the highest paying minimum wage, but people do go by, right? People do go by doing jobs that potentially do not require any form of like graduate studies or any form of like studies that is post-secondary school, right? People do go by. And the fact of the matter is that it's not for me to tell them that, oh, you should do this so you can make yourself better, so you can get a better paying job. That would be simply imposing my view, thinking that this form of education is superior to whatever that you're getting. Maybe their form of education is interacting with people on a day-to-day basis in their retail job. That could be something they see as potentially useful to them, compared to facing the computer or doing research, looking at statistical models, or looking at cells, and whatever opportunity studying in the university might present. And I would say all of these are very much kind of shaped by the environment, your demographic. And drawing back to the Asian like communities, that minimum wage is so low that it's very hard to survive. And even if you do go by, it's really, really hard. Like, you have to work a lot of hours. Basically, we talk about this as unskilled labor, right? Unskilled labor as a whole, if you look at the demographic, a lot of unskilled labor jobs are actually done by migrants, just because people in my country back home in Malaysia, they just don't want that low minimum wage, which is why parents have that strong emphasis on for their kids to pursue some kind of university studies. So I think I think like sort of like my brief rant here would probably segue very well into your next topic of conversation about intentionality in terms of studying. But I think that you really have to understand the utility of education, because education on the whole simply sort of like means some form of learning. And I think that you can learn in multiple ways, and there's not one fixed way you can learn, but each way of learning presents a different utility from another.
I really like that response. I think it's like evident in myself, where I've got like, I applied for masters and they were like, no, basically, because I don't have any professional experience. There's no academic reasoning to show that I have any clue about exercise science, which I think is fair. And also, like, me doing grad dip is kind of like, okay, I have to show that I can actually do that at a high level. Otherwise, there's no point then putting me in masters, and then there has to be that kind of level up. I really like that response. Do you guys have any comments or rebuttals or anything like that to anyone else's points?
I do. I just wanted to say that there actually should be a distinction between the lower and high education, because it's. I see where you're coming from, Kedric, but I think that it has to be classified just for because you can't get going through the undergrad level, because you need tools that will serve you later on to complete your masters. It's like mathematics, you can't do derivations before you know how to add and multiply. So I think there is a scale, and that's why it should be classified. There is some order. You can't learn something if you don't have prerequisites. And that's why I wanted to kind of to point out. But also one interesting thing that I wanted to say, that and maybe we forgot about it, and that we are living in the 21st century. And today you can do pretty much whatever you want without a degree, and you can learn a lot of things without having a degree in a certain field. Obviously, you can't be accredited, I don't know, psychiatrist or the psychologist or something like that, physiotherapist, without the formal degree, which is fine and awesome. I believe that every profession should be protected in some sort of a way. But if you want to start up your own business and do your own thing and whatever it is, and if you feel that you can, educate yourself properly, and data science, for example, and machine learning is a perfect I would say example. So no one can tell you like, oh, you shouldn't do stats, you shouldn't do data analytics because you don't have a computer science degree. Well, there is Coursera, there is Udemy, there is YouTube, there's Googling, there's all kind of stuff, and you can just learn it by yourself and be employed by some high corp firm and earn a lot of money, and you don't have a formal degree from computer science. So that's like, I'll just quote Elon Musk, like he said, I never went to Harvard, but my employers did. So my employees.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and it's important to know, like, just because you have a degree doesn't mean that you're smart, doesn't mean that you're going to be successful, whatever success means to you. People, you don't have to go do any school. You can just be someone who's driven and loves what they do, and you'll go far with that. And there's people who have a PhD or a high degree, and maybe they're not using that to their advantage, or they're not technically the smartest in the world. You don't, because the world we're in now, it's almost like you need to go to undergrad. So everyone's there, and it's like, I need this piece of paper just so I can get a little bit extra more money in my job, or just to even get a job to begin with. And like that's understandable. But though everyone's in undergrad to start, everyone uses that time differently. Some people might spend more time partying and enjoying themselves, and that's okay. But others might use that opportunity wisely and say, like, I am going to build connections. I'm going to figure out myself. Because in the undergrad levels, when you're, what are my interests? Building relationships and connections, like those things are crucial. Yes, you're learning material in the classroom, but you're kind of setting yourself up to see like where I want to go next, and like who I am. You don't need that paper to tell you your worth, because it doesn't mean anything. You're the one who kind of tells you your own worth and finds that out through your experiences.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think it's like, if I use myself as an example, like through undergrad, I realized I didn't like my degree. I didn't like what I was studying. So I was like, okay, what do I like? And I just went literally all in on it. Obviously, hypertrophy. It's just like, and I found that now I feel much more comfortable with where I want to go just because of that. It's like I kind of I know a lot of people in exercise science now, and I feel more comfortable thinking like, okay, they have kind of shown me the blueprint. How can I do that thing? And it's, I like those responses. I think it gives me.
Sorry, I just wanted to jump in and say, you see now the point that I made about the bad professors and influencers, and the maybe it would be different if you had different professors who would be more enthusiastic about what they do, and maybe they would inspire you in a different way.
Well, I did find
so that's a whole circle of and of factors that are influencing young people's minds and decisions. That's why I truly believe, and I talked with Colby about this multiple times, and I really think that it's important what his brother is doing, and essentially showing people what can they do in the future. I don't think that people don't know what they want to be in the future, because they're never exposed to these kind of professions. They don't know what it looks like to be a doctor, what it looks like to be a whatever, and a lawyer or whatnot. So you don't even have it's a pity that you have to waste 3 years of your life to make you realize that that's not for you.
Yeah, I definitely
handled much earlier.
Yeah, and I found when I had realized, it was kind of like I would ask questions around other things, and it was sort of almost, I mean, I've talked about this a reasonable amount on the podcast, but it's like the kind of questions I would ask, and it's not their field, so I understand that, but also there was quite a lot of like, maybe intellectual dishonesty is the word. I'm not quite sure. There was a lot of that, and I found it, like as you said about the professors, I was kind of like, whoa, like I feel though higher education, if we want to call it that, is it's like that. The idea of that is the pursuit of truth. You're trying to get people basically just to pursue truth. To I would say that's kind of the idea of it, or one of the ideas. So then you can use that better encapsulation of what is true, and then take it into the world, if that makes sense. And yeah, I find that I do definitely agree with the sentiment there, like that idea. And I wonder how common it is in all fields or stuff like that. Like I wonder how common it is where professors aren't ridiculously in love. Like we all know Eric Helms. He's like crazy passionate. He obviously cares about what he does. And it's like, I kind of wonder, do people leave education when they are that passionate? Do they leave it because they're like, okay, I cannot operate in this way? Or I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure if people want to leave the education system as a lecturer or as a professor because they don't feel as though they can get through to students. Like, I don't know, do you guys know Vitamin PhD or Gabrielle Fundara?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, so I've had her on the podcast to talk about this a little bit. She would present the exact same lecture at a conference where people have paid to be there versus at an sort of like in university. And the differences in responses was crazy. It's like undergrad students, they would kind of not really listen or give a shit. And then at the conference, they were basically like sitting there enthralled. And it's just, she saw the difference between those two. And I can't help but imagine that's also another piece of the puzzle. It's like, they don't really get what I think it's like there's multiple issues down the line. Like kids will pick an undergraduate degree because they want to do an undergraduate degree, not because they want to learn everything about a topic, if that makes sense. It's like, yeah, I think those things commonly become other things that sort of make it not as effective, if that makes sense.
Right.
I think just jump in real quick. I like to use this quote to a lot of my friends. I said there's almost always no such thing as a boring subject, only poor educators. And when I say boring, I use boring as in like literally the literal term, like boring or mundane, right? Because I personally feel that no matter how mundane or boring a subject is, there's always a spin and twist to it where you can make it interesting, right? The students might not be able to say like, yeah, this helped me in my life, right? That's the difference. That there's a difference between boring and useful, right? But I say an educator, if he or she cares enough, would be able to basically just change the whole vibe, right? I mean, for example, if like people always say that history is the most boring subject, but like you can literally make history an interesting subject through multiple means. And I think for you to do that, an educator has to, or lecturer or professor would have to take that extra step of not presenting what is usually presented in a textbook, because boring is often sort of like conventional, and boring goes hand to hand. People think it's boring because this is what they've always had, but just something that's different would potentially put an interesting spin to it. But to be different, it means that the educator has to do something extra, right? And I think that if educators are passionate, they would find that extra time to do something extra to make things interesting, you know. So like that is just like my thoughts on when you say oh, do people leave because they're not passionate, or why do some people teach differently, or why do people like just read the textbook, or just like, you know, class, go in, read the slides. I literally had a school, right? So this is a little bit sharing a little bit of my experience back in when I was doing my marketing degree, which I did not complete. I had this marketing lecturer. She came in and you could see that she just wanted to end the class because the students persuaded her to end early because her class was at 4 p.m. and the class would end late, which means that we will all get caught in the jam. And trust me, the jams in Malaysia is a whole different level, right? It's a whole different level. And literally what she would do is that, okay, if she would say, okay, class, if you want me to finish early, I would have to finish all my slides, which means that she has a obligatory requirement to meet, right? Because maybe, so at least she can like protect herself, say that, oh, I actually went through all my slides. So say anybody in class would like to read the slides for me. So I'm not sure if your listeners can tell, but I speak quite quickly and I can read even quicker. Like I can read really, really quick, right? Like it's one of those weird abilities that I have that's potentially useless unless you want to chase your lecturer out of class. So my class just picked me and just made me read every single slide, and we got done in 15 minutes. So the class ended at 4:15 and we all left. So that was literally my class, and that showed like, yeah, you know, that was my lecturer. Like no passion, just want to finish whatever requirement is necessary, and then just get the heck out of the class, you know. So those are just like some examples on my end.
So I definitely agree that there can be educators and teachers who aren't the greatest, but sometimes students will use that as an excuse. Say, oh, my teacher doesn't care, so, you know, why not? My teacher's the worst. I got a C on my test because my teacher sucks. Not really. A lot of it is on that person, and this is a topic that's learning, and I want other people to be excited about that too. And if I'm in a classroom where the teacher isn't great, I take that and say, that makes me want to be a better teacher myself. So that because I understand that they're potentially missing out on helping some students. You can't help everyone, but if you can help one student by just trying a little bit more, that's important, and you should do that. But sometimes putting the blame on the teachers is you can't do that. So it's really dependent on those people to make the most out of their time too. You know, because being a teacher is tough, and because you're not only trying to teach material, you're trying to get other people excited. Like Kedric was mentioning, history might not be exciting to everyone, but that's what you love, or at least you're doing it because you somewhat have some interest in it. You don't have to make everyone love history, but make people excited about learning, and they can see that through your passion. Like, wow, that person really loves knitting, and knitting is not my thing, but to see them so excited and see their eyes light up when they see a ball of yarn, that's amazing. I love that. You know, like that should be the kind of the takeaway, and the mindset that we have going into the situation is really important.
Yeah,
that's what I wanted to say. That. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just about to say, I think that's pretty neat, but I just want to crack a joke, so it's not important at all.
That's what Colby said. I think that's the most important thing. I really want to say, like, if you're not a professor is not enthusiastic about what is he talking about, why should anyone care about that too? So that I think that's enthusiasm is an energy that can be easily spread out. I think that's the one thing that where everyone can improve, and that will lead to a lot of good outcomes. But obviously, you can't blame teachers for everything, of course, because regardless of how good you are as a teacher or how good teacher, I mean, there are a lot of bad students as well, so which are there for wrong reasons that I talked about in my first whatever response to your question. So yeah, it depends. It's a multifactorial problem. It's not just like, is it us or them, you know?
And I think like what's a cool thing that I think Bryce Lewis has talked about before, sort of locus of control. It's like, as a student or a teacher, it's like, okay, like what can you control, what can't you control? Like, go from there. Like if you can be as enthusiastic as possible, cool. Like I remember I had a history teacher, and like I didn't give two shits about history at all. I couldn't care less, unless it was like World War II or something. I thought that was cool, but then everything else I was like couldn't care less. And they were just like crazy enthusiastic, and they were just like, they would sit up the front of the class and just like really talk with like enthusiasm, and like they would be like, guys, I think that's so cool, and we were just like, okay, yeah, and like slowly we all sort of came along, and eventually, like by the end of it, we were all pretty enthusiastic. Like that's when I meet up with those friends and talk about it, we talk about that class, and it's cool to see that. And even when I talk about hypertrophy to people who don't care, they can see how enthusiastic I am, and they can kind of see my love for hypertrophy. It's like they can kind of see that, and it's quite cool. And I think, yeah, I really like that kind of idea. It's like, as a student or a teacher, fuck it. Like, what can you control? Cool, go from there. Like, you shouldn't be like, it's your responsibility to learn or to teach, and do that the best you can, I would say. Yeah. So one of the things that you guys all have in common, obviously, is you're all studying your PhDs or doing your PhDs, however you would phrase it. Why would you say should someone do a PhD? What is the general why should they go ahead and do that? Because it's I guess and maybe someone could outline the difference between that and a master's and undergrad, and I guess undergrad and masters would be more close to each other, if that makes sense, depending on the program though, obviously. Why would someone make that decision, or why should they make that decision to go ahead and do a PhD?
Do you want to go first, Ivan?
No, just go.
All right. Yeah. So I think it'd be cool if we kind of all explain how we ourselves got into the positions we are and why. So and because that'll kind of help set the scene too, why people should, if they want to. Because not everyone should. Masters is tough. PhD is a lot tougher. It's, and not everyone can handle it, and that's okay. But you got to know what you're getting into first. So I guess kind of similar to what I said before, is when I was in undergrad, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I knew I liked lifting weights, and that was cool. But I knew that I loved learning more. And I was like I said, I wasn't getting what I wanted from my undergrad. So I figured, okay, well, I don't want to be an adult either. I don't want to go get a job right now. I want to learn. So let's continue that. Let's go to master's. And then at my master's at Florida Atlantic University with Dr. Zordo, I fell in love with learning even more. He taught me that learning is a continual process, and it's something you should enjoy. So like being there and being exposed to other ways of learning, and the importance of you kind of steering your own path, it was great. I learned so much. I learned so much material, and I learned a lot about research, but I learned more about myself too. And so that from there, it's like, you know what? I saw how much I grew in those 2 years of masters. I want to learn more. I want to grow. I want to see how far I can push my limits. And I know that, like I said, PhD can do that. So we've all been here about a year now, and for me, it flew by, one, but two, I feel like I've grown in so many ways. But I think the biggest thing is knowing that seeing all the work you're putting in is starting to pay off. You know what I mean? Like seeing like, okay, people are coming to you asking questions. People will trust in what you're saying. People are asking you to come on their podcast. Thanks, James. It's like you start seeing like people are like, see how much you love what you're doing. You know what I mean? Because if you're going into the PhD or a master's, you love that stuff. You love what you're doing, and that's just how it is. So I feel like to get into it, you have to, one, make sure you know what you're getting into. Two, love what you're doing. Like, truly love it. You know, you should wake up, be excited to learn about hypertrophy, to learn about strength, to learn about whatever it is. But three, I think it's really important to know that you don't need to know exactly where you're going. You know, just because, like, I'm going to go do my master's because I know in 2 years I will graduate and I'll have this position at this university and I'll do this. No, I have no idea what I want to do when I grow up. Like, you know, in 2 years, if I graduate, like, I still have no clue, and that's okay. You don't need to have your life figured out from undergrad or from master's. You're taking these steps, going to these different levels of education to help you get there. I mean, so you don't need to have a concrete plan. Just love what you're doing and continually make progress day to day.
Yeah, I'll go. That's great, Colby, what you said. I really agree with you. I would just like to add that because you said that we should talk about ourselves. The reason why I did a PhD is I had a really enthusiastic professor when I started my bachelor's degree, and it's a kind of a different format back home. I had an integrated master's and bachelor's degree, so 5 years straight. Essentially, I participated during my first semester. So when I was a freshman, I participated in his in his training study for his doctorate. So he was a assistant or whatever, assistant professor or whatever back then. And that, it made me realize how cool is this. You know, he is now doing a 3 months trial while trying to answer some question, blah, blah, blah. And I saw that it's a huge process. And then he was trying to control a shit ton of things just to answer a relatively simple question, which was related to aerobic adaptation. It doesn't matter, aerobic training adaptation, but regardless. I also want to say that so what motivates me to do a PhD? Being motivated to solve real problems or real world questions, and I'm a problem solver. I'm always like that. Like, even outside of the academia, I'm really trying to solve problems. I really like that. I don't know. I like to be challenged, and I like answers, and also I like to learn. So it makes me feel credible, if you will, and that's what I like. That's how it is. But I also want to stress the fact that I truly believe that you should only do a PhD if you want to be connected to academia in some sort of way. So I don't believe that you should, you already know that you want to be in industry, blah, 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 and have your business, blah, blah, and do a PhD. You can do all of that without a PhD. So you don't need a PhD, because some opportunity might come up and you might take it just because, oh, it's there. I'm just going to take it. I'm a businessman. So you take it and you do a bad job then, and you took a spot from someone who might be twice as enthusiastic as you are. And that's what I don't want to see happen. I don't want to see that happening. And I see a lot of that, especially in Europe. And that kind of bothers me. So I really believe that if you really want to do a PhD, that you should really be connected to academia in some sort of way, and that you want to do that. So you really like research. You are intrinsically motivated to solve problems and to discover new things, or to test hypotheses, or to debunk myths and all these things. If you want that, then you should pursue a PhD, because that's a research degree. Caption that, research degree. So we should all act like it is a research degree, not some sort of way of increasing your self-esteem. Yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I like that response. Kedric, do you have anything?
Yep. So I guess the big thing for me would be, I remember this time when Eric actually asked Colby and myself to speak to a couple of undergrads on why we're doing a PhD and our journey. So I'm just gonna rephrase some of the stuff that I mentioned then. So the first thing that I think that really is important is that you need to have a burning passion for your topic. Eric told me that I enjoyed and I loved what I was researching, but at the end of the PhD, like I almost hated it just because it's so narrow. Like a PhD literally puts you in a box, and all you look at is that particular topic. So by the fact that it is like so repetitive in a way, it can get boring, right? And that is just normal, right? I don't expect people to be as enthusiastic as they were when they first started, right? So, but can you imagine if that you started with a topic that you completely did not enjoy, but chose it to actually, like, for the sheer fact of boosting your self-esteem, or doing it for some other reason, thinking that, if I do this, I can slap up a couple of letters behind my name, make my name, my last name look like some ABC soup after that, and can you imagine if that was your intrinsic motivation? I think that would potentially cause burnout, right? Or on the other hand, it could, like, say, potentially cause intellectual dishonesty, because you probably just want to get things done as quick as you can, graduate, never see it again, probably don't really care as much, and that really reflects in the work that you produce. And I think that is very, very important, because I look at PhD as something that is slightly on the altruistic side. So I look at it from this point of view, where I have benefited so much from the powerlifting research, the powerlifting community. I have consumed so much information from all of these different facets. Right now, it's my turn to produce something. Right now, it's my turn to contribute back into the research, contribute back to the field that has given me so much, right? And I tell this to people, like, think about it. I'm not a scholarship student. I move my life from a whole different country, decide to give 3 years of it, or potentially more, to research a particular topic. When I'm done, I don't own any of it, because everything is owned by the university. On top of that, I'm paying money for it, right? That sounds absolutely ridiculous if I put it in that way. It sounds ridiculous in terms of, if you look at it from a sole, from a profit point of view, right? I pay money for something that I don't get. Literally, I pay money for people to own my things. It's like, say, dude, I give you $5,000, and then now you own my car. Great, right? But that completely doesn't make sense. But if you look at it, like, what lies beyond is really my desire to contribute back to the field that has given so much to me, and that is like my intrinsic motivation. I wouldn't say that everybody should have a similar. You would potentially burn out, and you would produce low quality work simply because you just want to get it done. And I like this quote a lot from Viktor Frankl. So I actually quote him all the time when it comes to pursuing a career or deciding what pathway you're gonna go down that could potentially dictate the rest of your life. And Viktor Frankl is this Austrian neurologist and psychiatrist, he is also a Holocaust survivor. And he said that success, like happiness, cannot be pursued. It must be ensued. And it only does so as the intended side effect of one's personal dedication to a cause greater than oneself, or as the byproduct of one's surrender to a person other than oneself. Which means that, when it comes to like success and happiness, we cannot just focus too much on like my personal glory, my personal fame, and I'm doing it just for the sake of that. I'm not saying that you cannot do it because you want to, but I say, like, if that is your, like, if fame, glory, money is like your sheer motivation when you go into a PhD, I think that's going to put you in a very, very bad position when you're halfway through, when you're neither at the start nor the end, and you look and you're like in this black hole of like, oh my gosh, I don't know when this is going to end. You'll be like, when you do not have that strong enough motivation to ground you, then I think it could be quite catastrophic for yourself. But like I say, if money is if like fame and glory and motivation is strong enough to ground you, then it will be catastrophic for everyone else, because you you will do everything to just, that's my strongest motivation, then you will just do everything for yourself, and then people around you will just like wither away, like when you see like movies when like this dark cloud pass over the land, or like this evil entity comes and all the plants just die. That could potentially be what happened if your not right motivation is so strong, and that's your grounding. But yeah, that's just a little bit of like my thoughts on why I do things. And I'm not saying that everybody should have the same reasons that I have, but this is why I do things and how I reflect upon a certain criteria whenever I try to keep myself on course during my PhD.
Mm. Any comments from anyone?
I think it's really well said, and I think we're like all three of us. Like, we get along really well because we all have similar values like that too. We value education, we value helping others too, and it's like, oh yes, you got a paper out. So yes, now I got X amount of publications, and now my name's on that paper. It's like, yes, now we're getting that research out there that can help people. We're doing this research because, like, okay, there's ambiguity in this topic. I want to help people understand what's there. And it's like, by having that motivation be helping others, it is really where you can't, if you're going in with selfish reasons, you're going to have a bad time. You really are. And you'll find that not a lot of people have it. Some people might have selfish motivations, but they don't do too well. So I think Kedric had really good, and I like how you put that. It's good.
I just wanted to add that because both of them talked a little bit more about the topics and investigating certain topics and all that stuff. Then that Dr. Helms or our supervisor said that it can be a little bit boring investigating one topic and all that stuff, and I fully agree. But I would also like listeners to note that they should look, or we all should look at the PhD. On a broader perspective, and I think that Americans used to say that they are doing a doctoral training; they are not a PhD students or something like that. And I also like to see a PhD as a doctoral training now more and more, because if you do a PhD, that's a training phase for you, and that will give you tools how to do science. So, and that's how should people also look at the PhD, because on a broader perspective, that's what it is. It's you learning tools, or increasing your toolbox, which will allow you later on to do science and answer questions, regardless is it going to be in academia or in practice. It will give you that critical mindset. You will think critically, and you will know that it's not that simple. And then you will know, okay, you hear a new information about something, and then you will be able to tackle it from 10 different angles to see, is it really true, or does it apply for you, or for your situation, or for your circumstance, and all that stuff. So I think that because if you do a PhD, regardless of the field, you have the tools to do science in any other field, obviously, if you know the content, but it's pretty much the same area. The process is the same. Scientific method is pretty much the same everywhere. Just the content, not just, but content is different. So I also like to think about PhD as a training, not only investigating one topic who never did before, or giving back to the community about something or stuff like that. It's a training also.
Yeah. And just kind of adding that too, because one of the questions, James, you asked was the differences kind of between master's, PhD, undergrad. I think the biggest thing is the responsibility. So in undergrad, you have class 3 times a week, and you need to show up, and you need to, you have an exam coming up, guys, make sure you study. The rest of the week, for 3 hours, the rest of the time, you should study, but you can do what you want. PhD, Eric's not saying, hey guys, come on, time to come in and do your studies and do this. He's just like, hey, your timeline, get this done within the next 6 months. And if you have questions, let me know, and I'm here for you. But he's not babying us. The way he puts this really well, it's like we're the captain of our ship. It's on us to make sure we're making the most out of our time and doing what we're supposed to be doing. we have no one watching over us, like helicopter making sure we're on top of stuff. It's on us, and that's such an important skill for just being an adult and making critical decisions. And I think that's what the different levels of education help with that. You know what I mean? Because it's like when I was at master's, it's like, okay, we're giving you some supervision, but you also have to run the lab and run all these studies. It's like, well, I've never done that before. We'll give you some guidance that's on you. And now it's like, if you should be doing your studies because you're doing a PhD, and it's all on you. I'm not going to show up. You talk to your friends. Kedric, Ivan, those guys are there for you. You don't technically have to use them, but if you're smart and you use your resources, they're there for you. And it's the PhD level. It forces you to, I guess, grow up in a way.
Yeah, I think it's something that, as I consider more and more higher education, these things are things that I think about a lot. Like, I'm kind of still at an undergrad level if you think about a grad dip, and like I'll probably do my master's. Like, it's pretty much for me that feels as though I've locked that in. Like, it's an obvious decision for me now, mainly because it's like I want to have a level of knowledge where I can question things to a greater and greater degree. And I'm not sure yet if I will go into a PhD. I am not quite sure, and I think I'll probably refer back to this conversation when I do, or I'll probably just talk to you guys. Because for me, it's like I would personally only do a PhD if I wanted to do research or I wanted to go into academia. Like I am not yet sure, and I think it would be silly of me to say I'm definitely going to or definitely not going to. I think because also one thing to consider on my end is I don't know my whole like scoliosis thing. I don't know how long I'm going to last as a human, so I think I want to consider that as well, because I guess it could take a while to do a PhD. But it's something I think about a reasonable amount. But yeah, I really like the comments, and I think people will get a lot from that, because I don't think a lot of people really understand what a PhD is, and they also don't understand the differences, and they just know, oh, it's kind of harder, but it's like, if that makes sense. One thing that I thought is, or any other further comments there? No, cool. So one thing that I thought would be interesting.
You're good. I think I'm good at least. Yeah.
Cool. One thing that I thought could be interesting is generally through university, it's very hard to basically not go broke. And basically, like, would you guys be able to paint a kind of picture of how do you guys generally, and if you guys are comfortable with this, like generally fund yourself through university and not go broke, or make sure you can actually afford it? What is the general story there? Does it just end up with a bunch of loans, or do you just have to work a lot, or how does that generally work for you guys? Feel as comfortable to divulge as much or as little as you want, and then what does that general picture look like for you guys?
Okay, I just said something, so I'll go first. My family is very poor. I come from a poor family, and I lost my father when I was very young, and he left my mother with a lot of debt. So it was really hard for us. So I kind of learned that I have to work for pretty much everything that I want to get, regardless is it a PlayStation 4 or a degree. Fortunately not in my country. Like I said earlier, the education is free up to doctorate level. And one of the reasons why I'm here is because you have to pay for a doctorate level. Anyway, it's not the only one, but it's one of them. Through the uni, obviously, university is free, so uni is free, but I had to move 500 kilometers away basically to another city, to the capital city, to do my degree. And I had to work because obviously I had to fund myself. So yeah, it was really hard because I had to work. I actually worked as a personal trainer, and later on I was also a strength and conditioning coach in football, European football. So it was rough. I mean, I can't remember a day when I was when I was studying while being fresh at the same time. So I was always tired. I don't know how to study while being rested, but that's fine. You have to do what you have to do, and that was my actually I learned a lot. It's not that you also learn how to. You also learn time management. You also learn, everything. How to. It makes you grow as a person, because you have to become an adult really fast, and that's a really really good side effect, I would say, because it's not that you're just trying to finish your degree, because obviously you have to work for it, but it's also like makes you grow as a person, and you become an adult later on. Maybe even I wouldn't say better person, but I was a more complete person than someone who had it all from the very beginning. So that's how it but later on, when it came to doctorate level, obviously I didn't have money to fund myself, and we don't have a lot of scholarships back in Croatia, where I'm from. So I pursued a PhD scholarship, because obviously I wouldn't be able to fund myself. And good thing for me, I had a good academic record, so I was able to get a scholarship. And that's one way of doing it. So if you feel that you don't have that you don't have money, or you don't want to work or something like that, then you really have to push the academia side of the things. So if you have a stellar record, then you can get a scholarship. That's always an option. So currently, while I'm a PhD student, I have a scholarship, so I can't talk really about working, because I decided not to work a lot while I'm here, because I really want to devote my time and learn as much as I can learn, and not only stuff that are related to my PhD, but also the side stuff and some other things that I would like to master while I'm here, because I now have time. After PhD, I won't have this much time that I have now, and that's what I have to say. And obviously, my two colleagues will have to say much more on that.
Kedric, do you want to go first, or?
You can go first.
All right. Yeah. So I think it's definitely going to vary from country to country, school to school. So there's going to be a lot of differences there. But so through undergrad, I went to the University of Rhode Island in the States, and I had to do a bunch of small side jobs, legal ones, by the way. I would recommend legal ones. So I remember every year I would apply for upwards like 30 different scholarships that are of a smaller amount. So it'd be like $1,000, $500, $200. And every semester, every year, depending on when they would come out, I would apply for them. Maybe I'd get 2 or 3 or 4, but they every little bit would help. So and then I ended up getting jobs as a resident advisor, so on campus, which helped pay a lot of stuff too. So again, a bunch of little jobs to help pay for it. And the thing is, it's definitely doable. It can be tough, but you have to put in the effort to search for it, because the money is there. People think it's not, but it is there, especially in terms of any website. Look up scholarships for this. They have a scholarship for everything. They have a scholarship for like frog enthusiasts of Massachusetts. Like there is literally everything, and you can find it, and you might be the only one that applies. That's good, because then you get the scholarship. So you have to do a little bit of research and put a little bit of the effort to find it, but it's there. And so that helped me through my undergrad. I didn't have I had a couple smaller jobs, which like I said helped out with it. But in my master's, so this was a tough decision for me, because I got kind of screwed, where I found out really close to when school started that I got accepted, because someone forgot to pass down my paperwork to the next person, and they're like, "Oh yeah, so you got it, but you missed out on a graduate assistant position, and see you in 2 weeks." So I had to kind of like pack and figure all that stuff out, find a place to live, which was really stressful. But I was almost considering not going, because I didn't have a graduate assistant position, which typically pays for school and potentially a stipend as well, depending on where you're at. And that was really tough. And thankfully, so I decided I took a hit. I was like, I'm gonna go there for my first semester. I know that the person I am, they'll see like I'm a good person. I work hard, and I know I'll get a position after that. So I kind of had to take a risk, but then it paid off. So that first semester, Dr. Zoros was probably sick of seeing me because I was in the lab every single day. The first day of class, I was like, hey, like, how do I make the most out of my time here? He's like, come to the muscle lab. I was like, cool, I'm there. And I never left. So I kind of, not only with him, but other professors too, and just showing them how much I cared about my education and what I'm doing, it paid off. And then I got an assistantship leading up to that. So that was really good. So again, putting in the effort, showing people how much you care, that's going to pay off. And then PhD. So we here at AUT, they have scholarships, but they're really tough to get. Ivan got one, and he deserved 100%. And it's awesome. But like, we have so many people who apply for us, not only just in our little like exercise group, but the whole AUT applies for these scholarships, like 1 or 2 scholarships that pay for your thing and give you a stipend. So it's really competitive, especially if you're young and you're like, hey, I'm just in the game, so I don't have that big of a resume. And then you're competing against people who have been in it for a while, and they have all these jobs, and they have all this experience, and they outweigh you by, on paper at least, by so much, and that they usually get the scholarship. So, and similar to an undergrad, now I'm doing a bunch of smaller jobs. You know what I mean? I'm working at the accommodation part of AUT. I'm working at Personal Trainer Collective for a couple of money every now and then. I'm doing these little jobs like for data collection here and there to help sustain. So, but it's not impossible. And I think, and the other thing too, and I like to pride ourselves in this, just Kedric and Ivan, and we do a really good job of taking care of all aspects of health in our life. You know what I mean? We're not sacrificing sleep. We're not sleeping 3 hours a day, and we're not, forgetting to eat. We're on top of ourselves. We're still training. We're in the gym. We're still playing Super Smash Brothers on Fridays. That's today. So yeah, we got that coming. To get ready. And I think we do such a good job of that because, like I've mentioned, time management, but also like being purposeful with our time. You know what I mean? We okay, cool. We have 3 hours to do this type of work. We're gonna sit down and actually do that work. We're not gonna be scrolling to Facebook or Instagram, wasting our time. We make the most of the time so that we know I have a fiance to go home to. I have the job to go to. I have video games or anime to watch. You know what I mean? Like there's other stuff that we want to do because our mental health is really important to us too. At the PhD level, people think that you have to sacrifice everything. You need to, like you said, no sleep, no eat, and potentially lose your sanity. No, it doesn't have to be like that. It's going to be tough, and like circumstances will 100% be different from person to person. But it's more so, it's doable and it's on you. Yeah.
You mean to say we shouldn't just like never sleep, grind 24/7, like grind us?
I mean, you can, but you'll pay for it at some point. The diminishing returns, it'll come back later.
That's what I've been doing.
Yeah.
Kedric.
We'll have a chat later.
Right. I think the largest part and the theme that you would get from all three of us is you have to work hard regardless, like Ivan, I myself come from not such a well-to-do family, and I would say I'm not trying to compare like myself between the two of them. Like my situation is harder because the currency in Malaysia is smaller than the New Zealand dollar. So every like dollar or ringgit Malaysia I bring in to this country is of a lesser value, whereas the States and the euro is of higher value, right? So that could potentially put myself in a slightly harder situation as well, because when I thought of traveling overseas for my undergrad and masters, I did my masters in London, which is really, really expensive because the pound is also super, super expensive, super high compared to the ringgit Malaysia.
Highest.
Yeah, the highest, and I actually like that. The first consideration I had would be like, oh my gosh, like every ringgit I earn is going to be worth less in this country, So, but for me, shout out to like the Strength Guys. So I work for the Strength Guys, which is an online coaching company, and because of that, I get paid in Canadian dollars, which is slightly higher than the New Zealand dollars. So that actually helped me a ton in terms of paying off my daily living expenses. So I work as a coach while on an online coach while doing my PhD, and it's not a easy like task per se, you know. Like we all have our own, like, say, time management. Like Ivan said that for him, he wants to learn certain things, which is why he didn't want to work, which is why he put in the effort, right, prior to like work hard, get all the papers published, did all his research, and then get a scholarship. Therefore, he highly deserves the scholarship that he earned. For myself, I kind of like throughout this same time frame, and I actually had this conversation with Ivan on the way to the airport once, I think, when I was dropping him off. He was saying like we both literally work really hard, but we decide to pursue different avenues of that work, right? He pursued the academic side, I pursued the coaching side, because at that moment that was what we had, right? That was I would say the environment was supportive towards that particular endeavor that we decided to pursue, right? In Malaysia, the research field in terms of sports science isn't as robust, right? But having the power of the internet, I could coach people from all around the world. Hence, I decided to pursue that route and grow that area. And now that area has become is now like the driving factor behind all like my finances. It, like I say, and it's not easy because, like, you know, you ask Colby, you ask Ivan, and you ask a lot of my colleagues, they know that, yeah, Mondays are non-negotiable for me, where I don't do PhD work at all, right? Because I have to write I have to do all my coaching, write the programs. And it's great we're in New Zealand because we are ahead of the world literally by like almost a day. So as long as I send out all my programs before I go to sleep on Monday, I would be fine. But that means that I also have to send it out by 10, which means that Monday is non-negotiable. I do a lot of my programming. I do some of my coaching and programming midweek as well, on Wednesdays, but that's a smaller chunk. I think essentially it really boils down to the fact that you have to be responsible for yourself. You have to understand that, hey, this is going to be hard work, right? And right now you have to evaluate. Do not be delusional about like stuff. If you cannot like afford, right? If you're currently right now you're in a like, let's say you have like 100,000 of student loans, right? And then you, for example, like in Asian families, it's quite common that your parents ask you like maybe pay for youngest brother's education. So I actually have 3 younger brothers as well, right? So the reason why I'm not getting my parents to like give me a penny or a cent, whichever country you come from, whatever you use, is because I know that I'm already at a level of education where I do not need to pursue a PhD. It's not a necessity. And I have brothers that they've not even done their undergrad. I say like, so whatever money that you want to give me, I tell my parents, just give, like, forget it, right? Give it to my younger siblings, you know. And parents will be parents, you know, like even if they have to work an extra hours a day or a couple of hours a week to make sure that you're doing okay, they would. But I said, no, I don't need this. And I told myself I want to bear the burden and responsibility on myself. And because of that, there is certain things that I need to do, right? That enables me to be in my PhD, that enables me to fund myself and not sleep on the streets. And I think to realize that, right, people would think, oh man, that's a huge burden. But I think to realize that is actually like more freedom, because I know what I need to do. And now I know that what I need to do, now I know what I need to do. All I have to do is actually do it, you know. So that is for myself, to not like, to answer your question of how to not go broke. Like, I mean, I've just like ranted a whole lot. You have to understand where you are, evaluate your current situation, whether it's even possibly feasible for you to pursue a PhD. Like say, if you have like a lot of student loans, or like maybe you need to, like, maybe there's someone in your family have poor health and you have to help work to pay for medical bills and other stuff. Perhaps now is not the right time for a PhD, right? Learning opportunities would always be there. You have to evaluate where you currently are, right? Whether it's even feasible at all, and then look at the plans that you have, and then be aware of the responsibility that you need to bear, and then you just have to execute it. You know, the execution part would be difficult because I can't exactly say how to execute, because it's a process. You know, I'm not sure how well I would be in terms of my coaching jobs, right? It could go well, it could go poorly, right? I don't know, but it's that process. You take it step by step, process by process. When something new comes, you handle it the way like you always do, which is finding a new plan and then executing it. And I think at the end of the day, it's also like what Colby said and what Ivan said, manage your time, have some form of sanity, right? Like I told like the strength guys, I said, like, I'm not taking any more short-term athletes, not because I want something that is, I only want people that are long-term, but I say like my time for my coaching time spent would be better spent on people that I can make an impact on, which are people that work with me for a longer period of time. Because let's face it, you can't really make any significant changes within like 1-2 months, right? Which is actually not what people want. People want that magic bullet. But yeah, I just said, like to maintain quality in my coaching, in my PhD, and my general life, this is the boundaries that I have to establish. So you have to understand the boundaries that you have to establish as well. Because like I say, working yourself down to the ground might be great in the short run, but there is always that rate of diminishing returns, and it will come back to bite you in the butt later on.
Yeah, and I think it's crucial to note, like, even as an undergrad, it's like trying to figure out, okay, like I have this many hours in the day. It's kind of like the trade-off. Like I've definitely been a workaholic in the past, and it's like you kind of have to. It's like there's a balance, right? You can be pretty close to a workaholic and still be sane, but it's like the depends with your relationship around work, as Colby sort of said. It's like you want to be careful. Like I feel as though if mental health and sleep and shit like that deteriorates, I feel like your general efficiency is going to go down regardless. So it's not even more productive just to be a maniac. But it's like, yeah, I definitely agree. Like, and now I'm currently making a lot of decisions. Like, should I get a job as a podiatrist? I'm not sure. As coaching starts to pick up, it's like, it's skeptical. I'm careful, if that makes sense. It's.
I think this, I don't know, like that. I think one of the things all of us here struggle with, like especially us four, and if anyone listening too, which is necessarily a bad thing, but it's something you need to get good at, is saying no. And because we, see, Ivan's upset, like, oh man, it's because we're so gung ho and helping everyone, and that's great, 100%. But we also make sure we're taking care of ourselves. I mean, we can't like, yeah, sure, I'll help you with your data collection that maybe like does nothing to do with me, but I'll be a good person. I'm also me losing 4 hours of sleep, and then I'll be behind on my work, and then we have to be good at saying no, and understanding that time is extremely valuable and continues to be valuable. So like understanding that and having that skill of saying no is something you learn over time, and that master's and PhD levels teaches you pretty good.
Yeah, and I feel like the sort
I still
of
haven't learned
it. Don't worry, probably in there.
Yeah, I
2
feel
more
like
years.
like one thing that is maybe a good anecdote is like I recently got a girlfriend, as Ivan said, and it's like
Congratulations.
Thank you. Finally.
Yeah.
But it's like making that like I feel like it's important for me to realize like the boundaries I have now set. It's like, okay, this is the day that we just hang out, or this is the day where I give you 6 hours of pure time where I'm not like, okay, but I'm gonna send this email. Like I'm not fucking around doing other shit. It's like I can always work more. Like there's no upper limit. I could put out 7 infographics a week or 12 podcasts or whatever. It's like, like that could happen, but then it's like, it's the fucking trade-off. It's like, I believe, Ivan, you have a fiance?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. So it's like that kind of, is there anything you've kind of realized, like strategies to like make sure you're not going insane or?
Yeah, I was always a workaholic, and especially during, actually even bigger one, where during my undergrad and the masters, because I worked 8 hours a day as an SSA coach for the team. So 4 hours in the morning shift and 4 hours late afternoon, and all the rest of my time I was at uni or studying. And we were really seeing each other rarely, like maybe 2 times a week. But she understood that, and she kind of I really haven't paid attention to that first 2 years of our relationship.
Mm.
But as from the third one, I started to devote my time more and more because I probably grew up. So I was like, okay, I kind of felt sorry. So I increased the time that I spent with her and all that stuff. So I was like fortunate enough that she didn't dump me by that time. So yeah, but now I'm also very now fortunate because she's a PhD candidate in clinical psychology, so she understands, and that's also very important. It's important for your partner to understand your commitments and what do you have to do, and I think that's very important. So time management, yeah. I also always feel a necessity to devote at least 2 hours or I would even say 3 hours of my free time to her every day, regardless of that, and she feels the same. So it's usually during night, and we train together. So that's one thing, and then later on, couple of TV show or something. So that's like small thing, and always go somewhere together during the weekend because we're all both very busy. So I think that's very important if you have a long-term partner or even a short-term partner. It's important to, but not even with a partner, but with friends and if you are abroad, you need to keep your connections with your family and not only family but the friends back home, because it's really, I think that's really important. Now when I was overseas like a month ago, no, like 3 weeks ago, back really want to see me and they want to chat with me or they want to keep in touch with me. That was like really like, God, I really need to improve in this. I really have to be better at this. I really have to send messages frequently and all that stuff, but that takes time, and yeah, we should all, I don't think that nothing is that important in life that should kind of be the only thing you shouldn't have the most important thing in your life. You should have a lot of important things in your life, let's put it that way. So, and that's
a lot of
important.
sources of joy potentially, I think.
Yeah, definitely. But also in New Zealand, a lot of people talk about life-work balance, but I think that a work is kind of suffering here.
Right.
I don't think that people don't work. I think that people don't work hard enough here, and usually they are kind of making fun of people who do.
Yeah.
And I don't believe that someone is that stupid to work harder than necessary, quote unquote necessary, if he doesn't want or she doesn't want to. So if you feel happy if that work makes you happy and makes you feel good, then why not? Why don't work harder than anyone else? I mean, especially if if criteria is low, so that's my few cents about that.
I find a useful strategy for myself is like, not for the relationship, like see her in person all the time, but like a lot of my friends, for instance, they're overseas, like podcast guests that I'm now like good friends with. It's like, what I'll do is I'll just send them a voice message, or I'll send them I'll reply to their story or something. This is why I do spend a reasonable amount of time on Instagram, but it's like, I'm not just scrolling. I'm pretty much never just scrolling. I'm like going through stories and like replying to my friends. And I find for me, it's a cool way for me to keep those interactions and keep those friendships alive, because I'm showing them, I'm not just responding with saying like cool or commenting on the fucking post or some shit. It's like I'm actually sending them a voice message about something of substance, or sending them a some kind of just being like, hey, I know you exist, you're still my friend, etc., etc. And yeah, I don't know, I find you can still be really, really hardworking and maintain friendships, but it's also important, I think, as you said, like devote that time where you're just hanging out with this human. Like I think it's really important to separate those two times and like realize like, okay, I'm just hanging out, like you're just fully focused. Like I remember every time I've hung out with Colby, we've just sat there and like we're not like standing there on our fucking phones or like that, we're literally just talking to each other. And it's like, yeah, it's I don't know, I find like half-assed connection quite frustrating. Like, have I frozen? I don't know. It's like I find that half-assed connection quite frustrating when people will like kind of half invest in the interaction. Like I'd rather like sit the fuck down, talk to each other, or like do something. Don't go on your fucking phone. It's like just speak to other human beings. You know, like
Mhm.
everything has to
Kedric-
be done with
oh,
intention.
Kedric, I would like your input about all of this.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. I knew it's gonna come bite me in the ass. So in general, so this is really true, and I can use it as an example because my ex says this all the time. Is that when we first started dating, obviously I work as an online coach and I communicate a lot with my athletes, and because in general I'm friends with them, so when they text me, it's like, oh, I'm replying to a friend, right? And then she's like, why are you always on your phone? It's like, oh, like this work, it's very easy to categorize it as work. And I had to make a clear distinction on when I go out with her. I had to really like restrain myself from touching my phone. The most I would do is like if we go like have ice cream, I'll take a picture of ice cream, Instagram story, boom, done, right? I just need to let Instagram know that I'm eating ice cream right now, and then done, right? Because literally, I mean, on my Instagram, I said like ramen and ice cream connoisseur. Right, so I have to live up to my ice cream connoisseur name. But I think for myself, I'm not using this as an excuse because I'm actually quite aware. It's just that if people watch the video, right? If I know this might not be on the video, but if people watch it, is that you just look at the amount of time I've changed my chair position in like the past 1.5 hours, right? I am extremely.
Now people will look just because of that.
Yeah, I'm extremely fidgety, and I'm not sure. I'm not officially diagnosed, but I have a lot
I'll put
of.
it in the timestamps.
Yeah,
when you
tell them how you earned $20 last week.
Yeah. So I'm actually very fidgety, and I'm not officially diagnosed, but I think I have like maybe mild like ADD or some kind of like attention disorder. So like grabbing to my phone is very
natural.
Very natural, very subconscious. I just need to grab onto something, Like if I don't have my phone with me, I would probably like do this annoying thing where you like
oh yeah
on the pen all the time, or I'm like my ex told me that I would like scratch my hair or something, just something to not be still. So I'm just very fidgety, and I think that touching my phone is just easier because it's easy for me to go on social media, but I'm also prompted by the fact that I need something to grab on or to touch or to move around. And the story was just shaking my legs at a barbecue that we had, and one of the research fellows said that Kedric, I noticed you fidget a lot. I said, yeah, I do it all the time, and then he said like, oh, like now that I notice it, it's actually like bothering me. He said it not in a not in a demeaning way, but just letting me know, because I know he's not the kind of person that to demean other people. So he said, if you actually I'll pay you $20 if you stop fidgeting for 30 minutes, right? And I thought he wasn't being serious. I thought it was just something fun, But I tried not to fidget for 30 minutes, and it was really, really difficult. I'm not even kidding. You could ask like Colby and whoever that was there. I literally had to I had to clasp my hands, like grab onto my hand, or like even like grab onto my thighs and press it down just to not fidget. And it kind of feels like I'm on crack and I'm having like withdrawal symptoms. Like I'm just having these withdrawal symptoms. But at the end, like I made it, and I'm not sure if it was the easiest $20 I've ever made or hardest $20 I've ever made. But
maybe both.
The story, money is the best motivator in the world.
Yeah. And especially when you're like, say, trying not to be broke, right? So another tip for all your listeners: if you're trying not to be broke, pretend to fidget a lot in front of somebody that hates fidgeting, and then challenge them to pay you $20 for 30 minutes of not fidgeting. So that's one way to earn your income.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think so. I think it sounds like we went off topic a little bit, but we didn't at the same time. So like we're all talking about things like we're like being with people, being at barbecues, and spending time with significant others. And I think it's a huge point of being in higher education is that it can be really lonely. It really can, because you're like, I'm studying this very specific topic and I'm doing this very specific thing, and nobody else really understands it, or maybe we think they don't. And that's why it's important to make time for people, make time for the things that you love to do, and then build these relationships and take care of yourself mentally first. because it can be tough. There's a lot on the shoulders. Oh, make sure you call mom this weekend, and I have to adjust for the time zone, and I only have this small time frame to actually call them, and then I have to do data collection, and I have to work and do this. So it can be tough, but like these stories that we're telling all show that like we're also taking care of ourselves, and our friendships and our loved ones. So like, you don't just drop those things just because you're in a PhD or because you're in a master's. You anything, it makes you appreciate them more because you're like, okay, I am making time for this when I have no time. I must really love you, or I must really love what I'm doing. So it's like those tangents were for a reason, and they were legitimate. I mean, it was good. It was good.
You'd make a good podcast host, Colby.
Oh, thank you.
Boom. Yeah, I can. Have I frozen? I think I might have frozen. Yeah, I completely agree. One sec. Sorry, my mic's been weird. Yeah, I completely agree. It's like I realize now, like as I've gotten more and more busy, it's like I have to be really intentional about how I use my time, and it makes me really like grateful for people in my life, because it's like one thing I really like about my girlfriend is she's very intentional with when we spend time together. She's not like scrolling fucking Instagram or watching TikToks or some bullshit. Like we're there, like she doesn't. Yeah, and it's cool.
TED Talks, eh?
Huh?
Who's watching TED Talks? I want to bad girlfriend.
He said TikToks, not TED Talks.
Oh, okay. That's more reasonable.
Yeah, no, fuck that. Yeah, but yeah, I 100% agree, and I think, I think you can use social media as a tool for connection or disconnection. I think it depends how you use it. Like, I think I can often seem as though I use it where I just fuck my story every fucking day as long as fuck, and it's just me the whole day talking about all the shit. It's either like business shit or it's just me saying weird shit about books or something. And it's like, I find for me, it's a really cool method for me to connect with people. Like, I'm not really like the Hypertrophy Hub one. That's obviously where I'm just kind of putting out business shit. But it's like on like my other account, it's like the people who will reply to my story are my friends, and it's like, or like, other people, and it's like, or like I will reply to other people's stories, and it's really cool to have that interaction, because like as you said, Colby, it's like it can be lonely doing these kind of things, because the only other people I know in the city who do this kind of stuff are you guys and like Eric and like Chris Kennedy as well. It's like I don't know that many other people who understand this stuff at that sort of level, or talk about the stuff at this level and think about it this way, and are so passionate about it and all these things. And it's definitely very isolating. And I think it's cool to keep those when you find people online or in fucking other countries. It's like keep those interactions alive. Like I called my friend Aaron from Myonomics for like 3 hours the other morning, and it was just like the most amazing conversation. And I've never met him in my life, but it's just like we just sat down and talked. And yeah, it's I 100% agree. So should we finish it off here? Where can people find you guys if they are looking for you guys? Which of you do coaching? Which of you would be open to doing coaching, etc.? Or if you sell products, or if they can donate to your research, or things like that. Where can people find you guys? Ivan, where can people find you?
Right. I'm terrible with social media, so it's probably not worth of following me anywhere. But I'll try to. I'm really one of my goals for one of my goals for this year is to kind of improve my social media game. So people can probably follow me at Twitter or Facebook. Facebook is just my name, Ivan Jukic. You can probably put there somewhere below in the description box or something like that. And for the Twitter handle as well. But the best way, if someone wants to reach out about the whatever question that they might have about me or my stuff that I'm doing or whatever, is probably my email, which is ivan.jukic@aut.ac.nz. We can also put that in the description box. And yeah, that's it.
Boom, cool. And Colby, where can people find yourself?
Yeah, I'm not on social media that much, especially because when I am, it's for kind of work stuff. If you like send me a message, I usually respond to it. But Facebook is just my name. Instagram is just Colby Souza, and that's pretty much it. Because then if you want more detailed stuff, I could always give you my email through that. Or yeah.
Cool. And Kedric, where can people find yourself?
So I sell
Everywhere.
I sell like this 14-day fat loss thing. You know, like it's really good. I'm just taking the piss. But I do coaching for the strength guys, and so my Instagram handle is Kedric TSG. So TSG stands for the strength guys. My email is kedric@thestrengthguys.com, and like I say, I do coaching, powerlifting, hypertrophy, nutrition coaching, whatever, you know, there. So you can reach out via those avenues. And in terms of research, I mean, it doesn't matter. Like, I think my strength guys email is the one that is the best way to reach me, because I make sure I clear that my sort of like my personal email. But yeah, those are the best avenues to reach me. If you want to just say hi, drop me a DM on Instagram. Usually as my colleagues has mentioned, I'm always on my phone usually. So, and so yeah, I respond quite quickly. So I guess
Within
those
minutes.
those would be the best place to reach out to me.
Cool. And
sorry, so just like 10 minutes on all that, just don't be afraid to reach out to us, like especially if it's about the specific topic, because it can be kind of throw a lot at you, but also can be very different depending on your situation. So we would be more than happy to talk to you on Instagram, or even have a Skype call, like just talking more about this specific topic or anything. You know, we're human too. We're pretty cool guys, as you can tell. So don't be afraid to reach out. Yeah.
Oh, cool. And is there ways people can donate to your research? Is that possible?
We can create a Patreon. I think we can do something.
Cool.
Honestly, for donating, like maybe not money wise, but like time, if you could be subjects, that'd be great. There it is.
Donate yourself, please.
Yeah.
Have you learned all
donate your body and your time.
I'll have some painful studies going on later on. So I'll definitely need some crazy people.
Fantastic. Hey guys, thank you very much for listening to this episode. I hope you give us a review or you really enjoyed the episode. Let me know any feedback. I'm always open to any criticism, anything like that. Reach out to me on Instagram at James_Walsham, or if you'd like to follow my business account, follow at the Hypertrophy Hub. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you would like to help the show, there's a list of ways to do so in the show notes, but if you're wondering how, the best thing to do is just give us a review on iTunes, or just let me know how the show can be improved. Thank you very much.